Hello, everybody. I am so pleased to be back for an admin chat session. And the last couple of sessions I've done for admin chat, I haven't used slides or anything else because I just want to talk to you. And I'm really, really happy for you to reach out to me and ask me any questions on today's subject matter. And Lucy Brazier and I share so many core values, and our mission is really aligned. And the inner critic is something that I see come up with support staff so strongly. And there's lots of reasons for that, but it keeps us held back. It keeps us small, and it means that we don't step into our full potential. And I'm going to talk to you today a bit about why it exists, but also how you can work with your inner critic to start to transform it into that inner champion, that ability to use our resources internally to help us understand our full potential. And I promise you it's possible. It's work I've done on myself. So my name's Lucy Chamberlain. I am co-founder of CNC Search, which is an executive search and recruitment company specialising in support staff recruitment. And I'm also the founder of CNC Academy, which is a learning and development platform, again, specifically for support staff and administrative professionals. And I'm also a double certified coach. So I am an ICF accredited coach, and I'm about to become an addictions and habit behaviour change accredited coach as well. And it's been on my own learning journey that I've really grown to develop a deep understanding of the inner critic. Now, I've probably interviewed over 20,000 executive assistants, admin professionals over the last 24 years. Because for 24 years, I have been immersed in the support staff professionals industry, and I deeply understand the challenges that are faced when you are in a role of service. And what can often happen then is, and this may not be true for all of you, but what can happen is a sense of being othered. Certainly for some of the support staff professionals I interviewed, a sense of being less than, a sense where you're supposed to almost be seen and not heard. And now all of a sudden we're seeing this revolution happen in the industry, which is really exciting, where suddenly now you're being asked to step up, you're being asked to use your voice, create impact, to take the initiative. But what hasn't happened is there hasn't been an investment in that training and development piece in order that all of that potential can be truly unlocked. And I know firsthand the skill set, the resources, the resilience, the intelligence, the emotional intelligence, the ability to upwardly manage that you all use on a day-to-day basis. But so often that ability to speak up in meetings or put yourself forward for a promotion is held back due to this inner critic. And I was talking to a client only yesterday who has an opportunity that they just think this one particular PA would be absolutely perfect for. And actually the inner critic has meant that she's decided that she doesn't want to go forward for it just in case she's not quite good enough. So this is a real thing, isn't it? And I'm going to work you through some processes in my coaching practice where I work one-to-one with clients. The inner critic comes up a lot. And so we're going to touch on some of those tools that can help you to work with yours. So if you wouldn't mind grabbing pen and paper, getting yourself relaxed and jotting down some notes, and so that you've got these takeaway tools that are going to be really powerful at helping you move through to having that inner champion, that inner resource that's going to create this rock solid foundation to you being able to step into your full potential. So let's start a little bit with an understanding about why our inner critic exists. Essentially, it's there to keep us safe. It's there to stop us experiencing anything like shame, humiliation, embarrassment, being sort of somehow not enough. It's there for a good reason. And that's why most human beings have an inner critic. It's there to keep us safe. It's there to make sure we stay within our comfort zone. And it's all in this part of the brain. It's all in our most prehistoric part of our brain. And a lot of it, of course, is because of experiences we might have felt when we were younger, or as we grow up, of embarrassment or shame, or being told we were certain things. And then as a result, our inner critic works to say, oh, I think that might make you feel potentially like that again. So let's just stay where we are. And inner critics talk to us in different ways. I don't know what yours says to you, but I just want you now just to make a note of how your inner critic shows up for you. Some of the most common things are you're stupid, you'll never succeed, you're too fat, you're too unattractive, you're not intelligent enough, no one will listen to you anyway. It says things like, that you failed in the past, so why on earth would you succeed now? And it also says things like, well, who are you to do that? Who are you to say that? What does yours say to you? Just note that down now. And it's really important that we label our inner critic so that we can start to separate the voice from reality, because of course thoughts are just that. They're certainly not facts. And when we can start to question our inner critic is when we can start to build up our inner champion, and all of a sudden that voice will become much stronger than that of the inner critic. So label yours. Mine's called Gordon, and it looks like a big squawking bird. So I've gone one step further. I had a coach a long time ago, Liz, who got me to both label my inner critic and to draw it, so that every time it comes up, I can say, do you know what? Go away, go away. I don't need you. You're going to hold me back. I don't need you, Gordon. Squawking away in my ear. So ask yourself, what does yours look like? And what does it sound like? What does it feel like when it comes up? I've had clients for whom there's been a big green blob or a witch, or it's been like a sort of monster type form. So label it, get a feeling for it, get to know it. Because one of the most important things is we can't, although the title of this talk is Banish, we actually need to work with our inner critic in order to move through and develop that inner champion. So do that for me now. What does it say? What does it look like? Give it a name, label it. Because through labeling it, we start to take away its power, and we start to recognize that it's actually not who we are. It's absolutely not who you are. So then we work through, when I'm with my clients, I work through a process called RAIN. So I'm going to work through that process with you now with your pen and paper. And the first thing is recognize. So the first R in RAIN is recognize. And I want you just to recognize why your inner critic comes up. Are there specific triggers that tend to result in that voice getting louder? Are there specific reasons that it exists? I wonder why your inner critic is trying to keep you safe. So the first step is to recognize, to look at your inner critic and get to know it, get to understand it. Because through understanding, we can then work with it and start to release it and bring up that inner champion, which is going to allow you to really step into your full capability. And you can pause this recording as you go along in order that you can answer these questions in more detail. Probably one of the most powerful exercises that I do with one-to-one clients. So the next is to accept. So I want you to do something that might feel a little strange. I want you to thank your inner critic for trying to keep you safe. Because once you recognize why it exists, and once you recognize why it's trying to keep you safe, I just want you to thank it. I want you to accept that it's there, and it's there for a good reason, even though it keeps you stuck. Ultimately, the intention of the inner critic is a positive one, even though it's a toxic one, if that makes sense. So yeah, I want you to thank it, and now let it go. So I want you to make a really conscious decision that you are going to let go of your inner critic. So for me, that's Gordon. I'm going to constantly let go. And I'm also going to make sure that I'm aware when Gordon comes up. I'm going to release it from my brain. So I do that by watching Gordon go away on a cloud. So if I've got that inner critic voice coming up, and for me, it normally comes up when I'm about to do something new or I'm going to speak on stage, I can still feel that sometimes coming out, like, who are you to do X, Y, and Z? And I will just watch Gordon, my squawky, angry bird, and I will just watch him, and I will just allow him, say hello to Saltsy, I will just allow him to travel off on this cloud. The next step is to investigate. So this is really powerful. So when we've gone through recognition and acceptance, we then start to investigate, what's going on for me when that inner critic comes up? Is it because my needs aren't being met? Is it because I'm not looking after myself enough? Is it because I'm facing something new? Is it because I know I might have to speak in a meeting? Because when we investigate, when we really get to know the triggers and get really specific, when was the last time my inner critic was really loud? What was happening for me? And we can then start to understand, okay, so for me, often my inner critic will come up when I have to have challenging conversations. It's something I've worked with a lot, but it still pops up. And I know that's because on some deep level, I fear rejection. So when I understand that, I can say, but actually, how can I switch my focus? I know that through having challenging conversations, you build respect, you build trust, and you can actually build a closeness through leaning in to those conversations, and it develops much better results for everybody involved. So I then choose to actually say to myself, that's obviously why and when it's coming up for me most at the moment. But if I switch my focus to these things, these really positive outcomes, and what potentially could happen in a positive way, visualizing that positive outcome, then that can really help me to move through. And it starts to create new neural pathways. So your inner critic starts to be really dialed down. And then the last is nurture. So you have recognize, accept, investigate, and nurture. How can I take care of myself through this process? How can I look after myself through this process? What do I need right now that is going to be most supportive? And sometimes it can just simply be asking yourself, what is the best thing that I could do for myself right now? And just really listening to that intuition, really allowing that to be heard. Okay. So so you have that process. We've worked through that process. And then I want you just to imagine your committee. Who is on the committee in your brain? Who is it you're listening to most? So I want you to imagine that your Gordon, your inner critic, is on your committee, and they're a bad member of the committee. So now I want you to imagine your inner champion. What do they look and feel like? Mine's like a really badass fairy, sort of a cross between Tomb Raider and a fairy. I know it's a bit of a bizarre one, but it's for me really like a really empowered, dynamic, fun, go-getting, caring inner champion. And for me, it looks a bit like a sort of a badass fairy, and that's who I want sat on my committee. I want like 10 of her on my committee. So start to now get to know your inner champion. What do they look like? What do they sound like? What do they say to you? What do they want for you? You get all of that down on paper. Because over the next week, I want you to start really getting to know that part of who you really are. Because this is your inner potential manifesting in your inner champion. So recognize them. So start to recognize who they are, what they want for you. Get that written down. Accept that you have an inner champion. Accept that your inner champion can lead your committee over and above your inner critic. Allow that, say it out loud. I accept my inner champion is going to lead the committee in my brain. Investigate, when do you need that inner champion over the next couple of weeks? When are you going to call on her, him, they, it? When are you going to call on it? What are you going to ask of it? And how are you going to nurture it? So this is what I'm going to leave you with today. To really nurture that inner champion, I want you to work with compassion with yourself on as many occasions as possible. I want you to, if you can, keep a thoughts diary over the next week or so. What thoughts are coming up for you most often? What feelings are coming up? And how can you nurture that inner champion? It might be small things, like every time you look in the mirror, saying something kind to yourself. It might be writing down what you're grateful for and a small thing you've achieved every single day. It might be asking your friends what it is that they love about you most. I want you to look at how you personally can start nurturing that inner champion. Once you've really got to know and recognized them, you've accepted them, you've investigated when you're going to need them over the next month, and you're going to really work to nurture that inner champion. It's about being your own best friend, and it's about parenting yourself over the next month. So I'm going to leave you with that today. That's our admin chat. It's a brief deep dive into the inner critic, but I'm just going to leave you with an anchoring technique if you'd like one. So just get comfy. I just want you to put your thumb and your forefinger together, press them together, and just rest your hand on your lap. I just want you to close your eyes and take 3 deep cleansing breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, and out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And I just want you to recognize that you have this inner champion burning bright inside of you. I want you to imagine your full capability when you release your inner critic and welcome in and accept your inner champion. I want you to feel the feelings in your body when your inner champion takes over your committee in your head. I want you to feel what you're capable of, how you might speak up, how you might move forward, how much more optimistic you feel, how much more capable you feel, how much more self-aware you feel, how much more compassion and empathy you have for yourself. I want you to imagine this energy that starts in your stomach, the energy of the inner champion, filling up your stomach with energy, power, capability. I want you to feel that rising now up through the torso, into your shoulders, into your arms, your neck, and into your head. You can feel the sense of energy and a bright light. This is the energy of your inner champion, the energy of your inner potential. And now just letting go of your thumb and forefinger and just placing your hand on your heart and just holding on to that energy, the energy of the inner champion. Knowing you can come back to this exercise to tap into your inner champion anytime you need. Taking a deep breath in, deep breath out. Thank you very much for having me, and I'll see you soon.